My wife, Sarah, just couldn't get pregnant. We decided to try IVF. Before the embryos were even made, I caught her switching my sperm with her high school sweetheart's sample. I didn't say a word. Just switched it back. And then, just for good measure, I swapped out Sarah's eggs with my ex-girlfriend, Jennifer's. 25 years later, Sarah's old flame showed up at my door, trying to claim my son. Dustin, I'm your real dad. Dustin and I got home from a medical research trip to Europe, and I was floored. A whole crowd of people, relatives I hadn't seen in years, were crammed into our living room. You'd think the Johnson family was holding a reunion. What really made my blood boil was seeing Sarah sitting on the couch, her arm around some red-eyed dude. My loving wife, always off doing her own thing, was whispering sweet nothings to him. I raised an eyebrow, dropped my suitcase, and looked at Sarah. What's the occasion? Looks like a party. Dustin, behind me, crossed his arms, giving the guy a disgusted look. He already had a hunch about who this guy was. Sarah's mum, Grandma Betty, sat in her favorite chair, looking uncomfortable, like she wanted to say something but couldn't. Before Sarah could even open her mouth, the guy started sobbing and lunged at Dustin. My boy, I'm your real father. Dustin dodged him like he was a hot potato, his face twisted in disgust. He took a step back, his voice icy. My dad's name is Michael Johnson. That's my boy, always has my back. I squeezed Dustin's hand, gave him a reassuring look, and then swung, connecting my fist with the guy's jaw. The sound echoed in the room. Don't go making stuff up, I said, my voice cold, my eyes like daggers. Sarah jumped up, cradling the guy's face. Michael, are you crazy? You can't just hit Mark. She raised her hand like she was going to hit me. Dustin was faster. He stepped forward and slapped Sarah across the face. You think you can hit my dad? Dustin's voice wasn't loud, but it was full of steel. Sarah froze, shocked and furious. She raised her hand again, ready to strike Dustin. But Mark grabbed her arm, fake crying. Sarah, please, don't. That's our son. The way he was acting, I could have puked. Sarah lowered her hand, glaring at Dustin. I'm only holding back because of your real dad. Dustin sneered. Yeah? I'd like to see you try. His glare was exactly like mine when I was younger. Inside, I was doing a happy dance. That's my boy. One of the older relatives, Uncle Jerry, cleared his throat, trying to regain control of the situation. All right, everyone, settle down. His voice was booming and authoritative. Everyone quieted down, their eyes on Uncle Jerry. He turned to Sarah. Sarah, why did you call us all here? Sarah took a deep breath, like she was getting ready for something big. She put her arm around Mark's shoulders, putting on a dramatic display of affection. Actually, I have something important to announce. She paused, looking around the room, finally settling on me and Dustin. I just watched, waiting for the fireworks. Dustin, he's not Michael's biological son. Her voice was soft, but it dropped like a bomb in the living room. Dustin whipped his head around to look at me, his eyes wide with shock. I signaled him to stay calm. The relatives started buzzing, like a bunch of sharks smelling blood, excited by the drama. Years ago, when we did IVF, Sarah hesitated, acting all embarrassed. The doctor said, Michael's sperm wasn't the best. I didn't want to hurt his feelings, so I used Mark's sperm instead. The nerve of this woman. She stole my sperm and is now trying to blame me? Sarah gave me a nasty look, like she was expecting me to freak out. But I was cool as a cucumber, so she had to keep going. I called you all here today so you can see. She looked at Mark with fake love in her eyes. Dustin reunite with his real father. The relatives were losing it. If Dustin's not Michael's son, he should meet his real dad. Yeah, he's been acting like he belongs in the Johnson family for way too long. It's time for him to move on. Michael's been running the Johnson business for years. Now that the truth is out, he needs to step down. I chuckled. These conniving relatives, I'd had to oust them from the company for their own misdeeds, and now they were just leeching off dividends at the end of the year. No wonder they were eager to see me go. They were relishing the chance to see Sarah and me fight, hoping they could sneak back into the company and get a piece of the pie. Dustin, seeing the greed in their eyes, squeezed my hand tighter. I spoke. Dustin will always be my son. My voice was quiet, but firm. Mark put on a helpless face, choking up. Mike, how long are you going to lie to yourself? I wasn't lying. Dustin is my son. Did Sarah and Mark really think they could fool me? Back when we were trying to get pregnant, I caught Sarah working with a nurse near the sperm storage, and heard her on the phone to Mark, all excited that she'd switched out my sperm with his. I didn't make a scene. I just walked away and slipped the doctor $100,000 to switch it back with the extra sperm I'd already banked. And then, I did her one better. I had the doctor swap Sarah's eggs with my ex-girlfriend Jennifer's. On embryo day, Sarah and I were together to witness the miracle. She was way too happy, thinking it was her and Mark's kid. I almost died laughing. For years, I've watched her dote on Dustin like a total clown. She thought she was screwing me over, but instead, she got to be a mum for 25 years. Sarah cut me off, mocking me. You're just being stubborn. Dustin may have grown up with you, but the sperm wasn't yours. Mark's his real father. I stayed calm, but with a hint of taunt. Are you living in a fantasy? If you don't believe me, we can do a DNA test. Sarah said, sure of herself. And I want a divorce. I've been your doormat, pressured into marrying you, stuck with you for 25 years. I've already put up with way too much. When she said, divorce, she had a look of pure glee on her face. Looks like she'd been waiting a long time. Ha, she thinks she's been putting up with me? I moved into her house 25 years ago and have been sleeping alone ever since. While I was raising our son, she was off with Mark. While I was building up the Johnson family business, she was out partying. But she was wrong about one thing. I wasn't head over heels in love with her. I only married her to get into the Johnson family, to take over the company. And now, the Johnson company is completely under my control. Sarah's lost all her leverage. Divorce? Sure, I said with a shrug. But the DNA test isn't needed. I'm certain Dustin is my son. Dustin looked at me, his eyes full of trust. Dad, I believe you. Sarah and Mark started freaking out. Dustin, don't you trust your mother? Dustin ignored her, sticking close to me. Just then, some college kid burst into the room. He went straight to Dustin, looking thrilled. Bro, everyone froze. One father popping up was bad enough, but a brother? I looked at the kid, who looked an awful lot like Mark, and I had a hunch. This must be Sarah and Mark's love child. They hid him pretty well, keeping him a secret for over 20 years. Looks like this show is going to be even better than I thought. Grandma Betty, sitting at the head of the table, looked at the boy, her face stern. Sarah, what is going on? The atmosphere in the living room turned icy again. The kid looked like he was about to cry. Bro, my name is Jake. I've always known about you. He stuttered a little, his voice trembling. He stole a glance at me, then looked down, like he was afraid I'd be mad at him. My dad, he always talks about you, says you're smart and handsome. Mark started sobbing, his shoulders shaking. Dustin, my precious boy, I've missed you so much. He looked up, tears streaming down his face, like he was the one who'd been wronged. Jake, he's been waiting to see you, too. We've been watching you from afar. Jake nodded quickly, adding, it's true. Dustin, I go to your school, so I can be near you. He pulled out a stack of photos from his pocket and carefully handed them to Dustin. These are pictures of you. I took them secretly. Dustin took the photos and flipped through them. There he was, wearing his graduation gown, smiling from ear to ear, sweating after basketball practice, debating at school. Dustin felt his skin crawl. Some creep had been stalking him all these years, spying on him, taking pictures of him. Sarah wasn't about to be outdone. She walked over to Grandma Betty, pointed at Jake, and spoke in a serious tone. Mum, this is a grandson of the Johnson family. The relatives have witnessed it today, please, acknowledge him. Sarah knew what she was doing. After Grandpa Joe died, Grandma Betty took over the family. Inviting all the relatives was just a way to put pressure on Grandma Betty to accept the boy. She was sure that if Grandma Betty accepted Jake into the family, I couldn't do anything about it. After all, she'd seen how much I respected and obeyed Grandma Betty these past 25 years. Jake was smart. He immediately turned to Grandma Betty and called out in a respectful voice, "Grandma." Grandma Betty looked at Jake, then at me, her eyes searching. She didn't respond to Jake right away. I knew Grandma Betty cared about me. Not wanting to make her feel bad, I broke the silence. "Sarah, letting this illegitimate son into the family to inherit the Johnson business is your goal, isn't it? Why rope Dustin into it?" My words hit like a bomb. Sarah's face went white as a sheet. What are you talking about?" I leaned back against the wall, arms crossed, a smirk playing on my lips. "Oh, come on, Sarah. Don't play dumb. This whole dog and pony show," I gestured around the room, "it's not about Dustin finding his real daddy. It's about getting Jake a seat at the Johnson family table." Mark's fake tears dried up real quick. His eyes narrowed, and for a split second, I saw the calculating bastard he really was. "Michael, you're just trying to deflect," Sarah shot back, but her voice wavered. "You know damn well Dustin isn't yours biologically." I switched the samples. "I was there, were you, though?" I let the question hang in the air. Uncle Jerry shifted in his seat, suddenly looking uncomfortable. A few of the other relatives exchanged glances. They smelled blood in the water, but they weren't sure whose yet. Dustin stood beside me, solid as a rock. "That's my boy." Jake, meanwhile, looked like he was about to wet himself. Poor kid probably had no idea what kind of scheme his parents had dragged him into. Grandma Betty rapped her cane on the floor, sharp, authoritative. "Everyone shut up. Michael," she said, her voice steady and measured, "what exactly are you suggesting?" I pushed off the wall and walked to the center of the room. Time to lay my cards on the table. Sarah thinks she pulled a fast one on me 25 years ago. She thinks she swapped my sperm with Mark's and that Dustin is their love child. I paused, letting that sink in. But what Sarah doesn't know is that I caught her red-handed. Sarah's mouth fell open. You couldn't have." "Oh, but I did." I smiled. Not a nice smile. "I saw you sneaking around with that nurse. Heard you on the phone with Mark, giggling like a schoolgirl about how you'd pulled off the perfect switch." Mark stood up, his face flushed. "You're lying. Sit down, Mark." Grandma Betty's voice cracked like a whip. Mark sat. I continued, enjoying every second of this. "I didn't make a scene. Didn't confront you. I just walked away, found the doctor, and slipped him $100 grand to fix your little mistake." Sarah was shaking her head, backing up. No, that's impossible." "Is it?" The doctor was more than happy to help once I explained the situation, and showed him the cash. He switched the samples back, used my sperm, just like it was supposed to be. Then the DNA test will prove Dustin is yours," Sarah stammered, grasping at straws. "But that doesn't change anything. I still want a divorce." "Oh, we're getting divorced, sweetheart. Don't you worry about that." I walked closer to her, lowered my voice so only she, Mark, and the people nearby could hear. "But there's one more thing you should know about that day at the clinic." Her eyes went wide. She knew. Somewhere deep down, she fucking knew. "I didn't just switch the sperm back, Sarah. I figured, if you were going to cheat, why shouldn't I? So I had the doctor swap out your eggs too." The room went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. "What?" Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. "Jennifer's eggs. My ex-girlfriend. The doctor had some of her samples on file from a donation program. I paid him to use hers instead of yours." Sarah's legs gave out. She collapsed onto the couch, her face ashen. Mark lunged at me, but Dustin stepped between us, and Uncle Jerry's son, a big guy named Tom, grabbed Mark's arms. "You're lying, you sick son of a bitch, you're lying." Mark was screaming now, spit flying from his mouth. "Am I?" I pulled out my phone, scrolled through, and found what I was looking for. Here's the email from Dr. Patterson, dated 25 years ago. And here's the receipt for the 100 grand. I've kept everything. I showed the screen to Grandma Betty first. She read it, her expression unreadable, then nodded. Show everyone, she said quietly. I held up the phone, walked around the room. The relatives crowded around, reading, murmuring. Sarah was crying now. Ugly, heaving sobs. No, no, this can't be real. I carried him. I gave birth to him. Oh, you did, I said, my voice cold. You carried him for 9 months. You went through labor. Hell, you even loved him. In your own twisted way. But biologically, Dustin isn't yours, Sarah. He's mine and Jennifer's. Dustin was staring at me, processing. Jennifer. Who's Jennifer? Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. Perfect timing. That would be her, I said. Everyone's head swiveled toward the front door. Dustin moved to answer it, still looking shell-shocked. When the door opened, a woman walked in, mid-40s, elegant, with Dustin's same dark hair and sharp cheekbones. She was stunning. Jennifer. I hadn't seen her in person in 25 years, but we'd kept in touch. After that day at the clinic, I'd told her everything. She'd been furious at first, at me, at the situation, but eventually, she understood. And she agreed to let me raise Dustin, to stay out of the picture until the time was right. That time was now. Dustin looked from Jennifer to me, his eyes wide. Dad, is she? Jennifer's eyes filled with tears as she looked at Dustin. Hi, sweetheart. I'm your mother. Your biological mother. Sarah let out a sound like a wounded animal. No, no, I'm his mother. I raised him. Jennifer turned to Sarah, her expression hardening. You raised him while sleeping around with your high school boyfriend. You raised him while Michael worked his ass off to build the Johnson empire. You raised him thinking he was your meal ticket. She stepped closer to Sarah. You don't get to play the victim here. Mark was muttering to himself, rocking back and forth. This can't be happening. The plan. It was perfect. What plan, Mark? I asked, my voice sharp. He looked up at me, hatred burning in his eyes. You weren't supposed to figure it out. Sarah and we were going to wait until Dustin was older, then reveal the truth. Get him on our side. He'd inherit everything, and we'd control it all through him. And when that didn't work? Grandma Betty asked, her voice like ice. Sarah wiped her face, some of her composure returning. We had Jake, our real son. If Dustin didn't work out, we'd push Jake into the family. Either way, we'd win. Jesus Christ, Uncle Jerry muttered. Sarah, you're a piece of work. Jake was crying now, full-on sobbing. Mum, you said they'd accept me. You said I'd finally have a real family. My heart actually went out to the kid. He was just a pawn in his parents' sick game. Jake, I said, gentler now, this isn't your fault. Your parents used you, but you don't have to be like them. He looked at me, tears streaming down his face, then at Dustin. I'm sorry, I didn't. I just wanted a brother. Dustin's expression softened a bit. Yeah, well, stalking me and taking creepy photos wasn't the way to go about it, man. Despite everything, a few people in the room chuckled. Grandma Betty stood up, leaning heavily on her cane. All right, I've heard enough. She pointed at Sarah and Mark. You two disgust me. Sarah, you're no longer part of this family. Mark, you were never part of it and never will be. You can't do this. Sarah shrieked. I have rights. I'm still married to Michael. The house, the money, half of it's mine. I laughed, actually laughed. Oh, Sarah, did you forget? You moved into the Johnson family house 25 years ago. It's not in my name. It's in the family trust. Grandma Betty controls it. Her face went pale again. And as for the business, I continued, I built that from the ground up. I have documentation of every decision, every investment, every deal. You contributed nothing. In fact, I have records of you embezzling company funds for your little shopping sprees and trips with Mark. You've been spying on me? I've been documenting your infidelity and fraud for 25 years. Insurance, you might say. Mark stood up again, his face twisted with rage. You smug bastard, you think you're so smart. You stole my son. I stole nothing, I said coldly. Dustin was created from my sperm and Jennifer's egg. He's mine. You have Jake, your actual biological son. Be a father to him instead of trying to steal mine. Grandma Betty rapped her cane again. Michael, I'm placing you in full control of the Johnson estate and business. Dustin is my acknowledged heir after you. She turned to Jennifer. And you, dear, I'd like to get to know. Any woman who raised a boy like Dustin, even from afar, deserves respect. Jennifer smiled, tears still in her eyes. Thank you. I'd like that. What about me? Jake's small voice cut through the tension. Everyone looked at him. The kid was a mess. Red-eyed, snot-nosed, trembling. Grandma Betty studied him for a long moment. Boy, you're not a Johnson by blood or by right. But you're young. If you want to make something of yourself, I'll pay for your education. College, trade school, whatever you want. But that's it. You don't get a free ride, and you don't get the family name. It was more generous than he deserved, honestly. But that was Grandma Betty, tough but fair. Jake nodded, unable to speak. Sarah found her voice again. So that's it? You're just throwing me out? After everything I've done for this family? What exactly have you done, Sarah? Grandma Betty's voice was quiet but deadly. You married my grandson for his potential. You tried to cuckold him. You neglected your son while Michael raised him. You stole from the family business. You kept a secret child and planned to use both boys to control the Johnson fortune. She shook her head. You've done nothing but bring shame. I want a divorce, I said firmly. And Sarah, you'll sign a post-nuptial agreement that entitles you to nothing. Not a penny. I'll fight you in court. Good luck with that. I have 25 years of evidence against you. Infidelity, fraud, conspiracy. You'll be lucky if you don't end up in jail. Her face crumpled. She looked at Mark, desperate. Do something. Mark wouldn't meet her eyes. Typical. The guy was a coward through and through. Actually, I said, pulling out another piece of paper from my pocket, there's one more thing you should know about Mark. Mark's head snapped up. What are you talking about? I hired a private investigator a few months ago when I got wind that you two were planning something. I wanted to know who I was dealing with. I unfolded the paper. Turns out, Mark here is already married. The room erupted. Sarah turned to Mark, her face a mask of horror. What? Been married for 15 years, I continued, reading from the report. Wife's name is Linda Chen. Lives in Nevada. They have 2 kids together, ages 12 and 9. Mark's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. We're separated. According to this, you just had dinner with Linda and the kids last week. There's photos. I held up my phone again, and showed everyone the pictures. Mark, smiling, arm around a pretty Asian woman, 2 kids at their side at some restaurant. Sarah let out a sound that was half scream, half sob. She launched herself at Mark, slapping and clawing at him. You bastard! You lying bastard! You said you loved me. You said we'd be together. Mark tried to fend her off, but she was like a woman possessed. Uncle Jerry and Tom had to pull her away. So not only are you a cheater and a fraud, I said to Mark, you're also a bigamist if you were planning to marry Sarah after our divorce. I wasn't. We weren't going to get married. Mark was sweating bullets now. Sarah went completely still. You weren't going to marry me? Mark looked at her, and for the first time, I saw something like pity in his eyes. Sarah, come on. You're broke now. What would be the point? The mercenary son of a bitch actually said it out loud. Sarah collapsed to the floor, wailing. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Dustin came to stand beside me, and Jennifer moved to my other side. The 3 of us, the real family, stood together. Grandma Betty, I said, I think it's time we ask our guests to leave. She nodded. Everyone out, except Michael, Dustin, and Jennifer. The relatives filed out, buzzing with gossip. They'd be talking about this for years. Uncle Jerry paused at the door, looked back at me. Michael, I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I never knew what Sarah was planning. And I'm glad Dustin's yours. I nodded. Thanks, Jerry. Tom hauled Mark to his feet and shoved him toward the door. "Get out, you piece of trash." Mark stumbled out, not even looking back at Sarah. Jake hesitated, looking at his mother, still sobbing on the floor. "Mum?" Sarah didn't respond. "Jake," Grandma Betty said gently, "go on home. I'll be in touch about that education fund." He nodded and left, shoulders slumped. Finally, it was just us and Sarah. "Sarah," Grandma Betty said, her voice tired, "you have 24 hours to pack your things and leave this house. After that, I'm changing the locks." Sarah looked up, mascara running down her face. "Where am I supposed to go?" "That's not my problem," I said flatly. "Maybe Mark's wife has a spare room." She let out a bitter laugh. "You really hate me, don't you?" "Hate?" I considered it. "No, Sarah, I don't hate you. I just don't care about you. I never did. This marriage was always a business arrangement for me, a way into the Johnson family. And you know what? It worked. I got Grandma Betty's trust, I built the business, and I got Dustin." I smiled. "So really, I should thank you. If you hadn't tried to screw me over, I might not have Dustin at all." She stared at me, broken. Then she stood up, slowly, like an old woman. "I hope you're happy, Michael," she said, her voice hollow. "I am, actually." I looked at Dustin and Jennifer. "For the first time in 25 years, I really am." Sarah walked to the door, paused. "He deserved better than you for a father." "He got better," I said. "He got me instead of Mark." She left without another word. The door closed behind her, and the house, our home, was finally clean. Dustin let out a long breath. "Holy shit, Dad, that was language," Jennifer said automatically, then smiled. "But yeah, holy shit." We all laughed, the tension finally breaking. Grandma Betty shuffled over and put a wrinkled hand on Dustin's cheek. "Your grandfather would have been proud of you, boy. And proud of your father for raising you right." Dustin's eyes got a little wet. "Thanks, Grandma." She turned to Jennifer. "You and I need to have a long talk, young lady. I want to know everything about you." "Yes, ma'am," Jennifer said, smiling. "But first," Grandma Betty said, heading toward the kitchen, "I need a stiff drink." "Anyone else?" "God, yes," I muttered. As Grandma Betty made her way out, Dustin turned to me and Jennifer. "So, what happens now?" Jennifer looked at me, uncertain. "Yeah, Michael, what happens now?" I'd spent 25 years playing the long game, planning, preparing. And now that it was over, now that I'd won, I looked at my son, my brilliant, loyal, brave son. And I looked at Jennifer, the woman I'd let go all those years ago because I thought I needed Sarah's family connections more than I needed love. What a fucking idiot I'd been. "Now?" I said, putting a hand on Dustin's shoulder and reaching for Jennifer's hand. "Now we get to be a real family." Dustin grinned, that same grin he'd had since he was a kid. "Took you long enough, old man." Jennifer squeezed my hand, her eyes shining. "Better late than never." Grandma Betty's voice called from the kitchen. "Someone want to help an old woman with these glasses?" Dustin jogged off to help her. Jennifer and I stood there, alone for the first time in 25 years. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "For everything. For dragging you into this mess. For asking you to stay away from Dustin all these years." She shook her head. "You gave me updates every week. Photos, videos, report cards. I knew everything about him. And you raised him to be an incredible young man." She smiled sadly. "I'm not sorry, Michael. I'm grateful. You gave me a son and protected him from all this ugliness until he was strong enough to handle it. I should have handled it sooner. You handled it perfectly." She stepped closer, looked up at me. "You always were the smartest guy the first knew. Smart enough to let you go once. Not making that mistake again." "Good," she whispered, "because I'm not going anywhere." I kissed her then, something I should have done 25 years ago instead of settling for a loveless marriage to Sarah. "Ooh, guys, get a room." Dustin called from the kitchen doorway, grinning like an idiot. "Grandma wants to make a toast." We broke apart, laughing. In the kitchen, Grandma Betty had poured 4 glasses of bourbon, her special reserve. To family, she said, raising her glass. The real kind, built on love and loyalty, not lies and greed. To family, we echoed, clinking glasses. The bourbon burned going down, but it was a good burn. A clean burn. So, Jennifer, Grandma Betty said, settling into a chair, tell me about yourself. Michael's been awfully tight-lipped over the years. Jennifer laughed. Well, I'm a surgeon. Pediatric cardiology. I work at Children's Hospital downtown. A doctor. Grandma Betty looked impressed. And you never married? No, there was never anyone. She glanced at me. I guess I was waiting. 25 years is a long time to wait, Grandma Betty observed. He was worth it, Jennifer said simply. Dustin made a gagging sound. Okay, seriously, the sappy stuff is killing me. Oh, hush, Jennifer said, but she was smiling. You'll understand when you're older. I'm 25, like I said, when you're older. We all laughed. Speaking of which, I said to Dustin, what do you think about all this? Finding out Sarah isn't your biological mother? Meeting Jennifer? Dustin was quiet for a moment, thinking. That was another thing I loved about him, he always thought before he spoke. Honestly, Dad? I'm relieved. That surprised me. Relieved? Yeah, I mean, Sarah and I never clicked, you know? She was always distant, cold. I thought there was something wrong with me, like I wasn't good enough to be her son. He looked at Jennifer. But meeting you, seeing you look at me the way you did when you walked in? That's how a mum should look at her kid. Jennifer's eyes filled with tears again. Oh, sweetheart. And Dad, Dustin continued, you've always been there. Always. So finding out you're my biological father too? It just makes sense. It feels right. I swallowed hard, trying not to get emotional. You've made me proud every single day, son. All right, Grandma Betty said, dabbing at her own eyes. Enough of this mushy stuff. Let's talk business. Just like that, we were back to practicalities. That was Grandma Betty, sentimental for exactly 30 seconds, then back to brass tacks. Michael, I'm officially signing over full control of Johnson Holdings to you tomorrow. Dustin, you'll be VP, start learning the ropes. Yes, ma'am, Dustin said, straightening up. And Jennifer, I'd like you to consider joining the board. We need some fresh perspectives, and a doctor's insight could be valuable for our healthcare investments. Jennifer blinked, surprised. I'd be honored. Good. We meet the third Thursday of every month. Grandma Betty knocked back the rest of her bourbon. Now, I'm old and tired, and today's been a circus. I'm going to bed. She stood, wobbling slightly. I moved to help her, but she waved me off. I'm not dead yet, boy. But she smiled to soften the words. You three stay up, get to know each other. God knows you've got 25 years to catch up on. She shuffled off to her room, the one she'd taken on the first floor after Grandpa Joe died and stairs got too hard. Once she was gone, the three of us settled in the living room, the same room where, just an hour ago, Sarah and Mark had tried to destroy everything. Now it felt clean, new. So, Dustin said, flopping onto the couch, tell me about how you guys met. And don't skip the embarrassing parts. Jennifer and I exchanged glances. Well, it was in college. I was pre-law, she was pre-med. You were a cocky asshole, Jennifer interjected. I was confident, I corrected. You hit on me in the library by asking if I needed help with my organic chemistry homework. Did it work? I had the highest grade in the class, and you were barely passing. So no, it didn't work. Dustin laughed. Okay, I like this story. Keep going. He was persistent, though, Jennifer continued, her eyes soft with memory. Kept finding excuses to run into me. Coffee shops, the gym, even showed up at my study group. I was determined, I said. You were a stalker, she teased. Hey, it worked eventually. Only because you finally dropped the cocky act and asked me, genuinely, to help you with chemistry. And then you actually listened and worked hard. She smiled. That's when I fell for you. When I saw the real you, not the act. We dated for 3 years, I continued. were planning to get married after graduation. What happened? Dustin asked, though he probably could guess. The Johnson family happened, I said quietly. My parents died when I was young. I was raised by my aunt, but she wasn't wealthy. I put myself through school on scholarships and loans. When I graduated, I had nothing. And I had medical school loans, Jennifer added. We were broke and struggling. Sarah came from money, old money. Her father ran Johnson Holdings, biggest manufacturing conglomerate on the East Coast. I met her at a networking event. She was interested in me, and I saw an opportunity. So you dumped Jennifer for a meal ticket, Dustin said, but there was no judgment in his voice. Just curiosity. Not exactly, Jennifer said. We talked about it. Michael was upfront with me. He said if he married into the Johnson family, he could build something. Create security for himself, maybe even for us someday. I told her to wait for me. I said that I'd marry Sarah, get established, then divorce her and come back. That's the stupidest plan I've ever heard, Dustin said flatly. It was, Jennifer agreed. But we were young and desperate. And honestly, I thought he'd fall in love with Sarah, forget about me, and I'd move on. But I didn't, I said, looking at her. I spent 25 years in a cold marriage, sleeping in separate rooms, and building a business. And every year, on your birthday, I'd send you an email. Just to check in. And I'd respond, Jennifer said softly. Tell you about my residency, my fellowship, my work. When Sarah tried to swap the sperm samples, I called Jennifer. Told her what I was planning. I thought you were crazy, Jennifer said. But I'd kept some eggs frozen from a donation program I'd done in med school. I never expected them to be used, certainly not like this. Did you know about Dustin? Growing up? Dustin asked her. Every detail, Jennifer said. Michael sent me photos every week. Videos of your first steps, first words. Report cards. Basketball games. I had a whole album on my computer, password protected, of course. That's not creepy at all, Dustin said, but he was smiling. I missed you every single day, Jennifer said, her voice cracking. But I also knew Michael was giving you the best life possible. Better than I could have provided as a struggling resident working 80-hour weeks. Did you date anyone? Dustin asked. A few people. Nothing serious. I always compared them to your father, and they always came up short. I reached over and took her hand. Same here. Well, I was married to Sarah, but that was never real. Okay, but seriously, Dustin said, leaning forward, what's the plan now? You two getting married? Are we moving? What about Sarah? Is she really gone? One thing at a time, I said. Yes, Sarah's really gone. I'll file for divorce tomorrow. With the prenup and the evidence I have, it'll be quick and clean. What about Jake? Dustin asked quietly. I was surprised. What about him? I mean, he's kind of my half-brother, right? Technically? Technically, yes, but he's not your responsibility. I know, but I don't know. He seemed lost, and it's not his fault his parents are psychos. Jennifer squeezed my hand. He's got your kindness, Michael. Or yours, I said. Can we maybe, I don't know, check in on him sometime? Make sure he's okay? Dustin asked. I studied with my son, this good, decent young man. If that's what you want, sure. But he doesn't get access to the family business or money. I don't care about that. I just don't want him to end up like Mark. All right, I agreed. We'll set something up, maybe get him into therapy while we're at it. Speaking of therapy, Jennifer said with a wry smile, we should probably all go. This is some Jerry Springer-level dysfunction. We laughed, the tension finally breaking completely. So, Jennifer, Dustin said, can I call you Mum? Jennifer's breath caught. Tears spilled over. I would love that more than anything. Cool, Mum. He grinned. Weird, good, but weird. You'll get used to it, she said, wiping her eyes. We talked for hours that night. About everything and nothing. Jennifer told Dustin stories from medical school. Dustin told Jennifer about his childhood, the memories he had of growing up, some involving Sarah, but mostly involving me. Remember that time I fell off my bike and broke my arm? Dustin asked me. Of course. You were 7. Cried for 2 minutes, then asked if you could still play in your soccer game that weekend. And you said yes, even though the doctor said no. You had a cast. It was fine. Dad let me play with a broken arm, Dustin told Jennifer, grinning. Told the coach I was ambidextrous. You could have gotten hurt worse. Jennifer said, but she was smiling. I was fine. And we won the game. See? I said to Jennifer. Good parenting. Reckless parenting, she corrected, but there was no heat in it. Around 2 a.m., Dustin yawned. I should probably get some sleep. I've got work tomorrow. Work? I asked. Take the day off. This has been a lot. Nah, I'm good. Besides, the lab is counting on me. He stood up, stretched. Plus, I kind of want to tell everyone that my parents are finally together. They're gonna lose their minds. He hugged Jennifer first, a long, tight hug. I'm really glad you're here, Mum. Me too, sweetheart, me too. Then he hugged me. Thanks, Dad, for everything. For being my dad even when you thought I might not be yours. For protecting me from Sarah's crazy. For setting this whole thing up. I'd do it all again in a heartbeat, I said, my voice rough with emotion. He headed upstairs to his room, leaving Jennifer and me alone. He's incredible, Jennifer said softly. You did an amazing job raising him. We did, I corrected. Even from a distance, you were part of his life. He wouldn't be who he is without knowing he had 2 parents who loved him. She leaned against me, her head on my shoulder. So what now, Michael? Really? Now? Now we do this right. I'll divorce Sarah, probably take about 6 months given her likely contest attempts, though she doesn't have a leg to stand on. Then, if you'll have me, I'd like to marry you. For real this time. That's very romantic, she said dryly. You really know how to sweep a girl off her feet. Jennifer Chen, I said, turning to face her, taking both her hands. 25 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I chose money and status over love. I chose a cold business arrangement over the woman I actually wanted to spend my life with. I can't get those years back, but I can make damn sure I don't waste another day. She was crying again, happy tears this time. I love you. I never stopped loving you. And I know I don't deserve a second chance, but if you're willing to give me one, I promise I'll spend the rest of my life making up for lost time. You're an idiot, she said, smiling through her tears. A brilliant, calculating, strategic idiot. Is that a yes? That's a, we'll see how the next 6 months go. But she kissed me, long and deep. But yeah, Michael, it's a yes. We stayed up until dawn, talking, planning, just being together. When the sun came up, painting the living room in shades of gold and pink, I felt something I hadn't felt in 25 years. Peace. 3 months later, the divorce was finalized faster than expected. Sarah tried to fight it, but once her lawyer saw the evidence, the infidelity, the attempted fraud, the embezzlement, he advised her to sign and walk away. She got nothing except permission to keep her personal belongings. Last I heard, she was living in a studio apartment in Jersey, working retail. Mark disappeared. Apparently, his wife in Nevada found out about everything and divorced him too. He lost his job, his family, everything. I didn't feel bad for him. Jake took Grandma Betty up on her offer. He enrolled in community college, studying business, said he wanted to do things the right way, earn his own success. Dustin met with him once a month for coffee, just to check in. They'd never be close, but there was a cautious friendship developing. Jennifer moved in a month after Sarah left. Grandma Betty insisted on it. No point in waiting, the old woman had said. You've already wasted 25 years. Don't waste another day. Dustin was thrilled. He and Jennifer developed the kind of relationship they should have had from the start. Inside jokes, shared interests in science and medicine, genuine warmth. I proposed properly this time. Took Jennifer to the same restaurant where we'd had our first date in college. It was still there, miraculously. Got down on one knee, had a ring and everything. She said yes before I could even finish asking. We set a date for 6 months out, small ceremony, just family and close friends. Dustin would be my best man. Grandma Betty insisted on hosting it at the Johnson estate. The business was thriving. With Sarah's embezzling stopped and Mark's influence gone, profits were up 30%. Dustin was proving himself as VP, sharp, innovative, respected by the employees. One Sunday afternoon, the three of us, Jennifer, Dustin, and I, were in the backyard, grilling burgers. Grandma Betty was on the porch, reading. "You know what's weird?" Dustin said, flipping a burger. "I spent my whole childhood wishing I had a normal family. A mum and dad who loved each other, who were actually together." "And now you do," Jennifer said, wrapping an arm around his waist. "Better late than never." "Way better," Dustin agreed. "I mean, sure, we're a science experiment gone right, created in a lab as part of Dad's elaborate revenge scheme against his cheating wife. But hey, at least we're honest about it." "When you put it that way, we sound insane," I said. "We are insane," Jennifer laughed. "But we're insane together." "To insanity," Dustin raised his beer. "To family," I corrected, raising mine. "To second chances," Jennifer added. We clinked bottles, the sound ringing clear in the summer air. Grandma Betty called from the porch. "Are those burgers done yet?" "I'm starving." "Coming, Grandma," Dustin called back. As we carried the food inside, Jennifer caught my hand, squeezed it. "Happy?" she asked. I looked around, at our son, brilliant and kind, at my grandmother, tough as nails but full of love, at Jennifer, the woman who'd waited 25 years for me to get my head out of my ass, at the house that was finally, truly a home. "Yeah," I said, and meant it. "I really am." Sarah had tried to destroy me, to steal my legacy, to turn my son against me. Instead, she'd given me the greatest gift of all. She'd been such a terrible partner that I'd gotten creative. And in doing so, I'd gotten Dustin, I'd gotten Jennifer back, and I'd gotten the family I'd always wanted. The best revenge, they say, is living well. And brother, we were living very well indeed. Epilogue. 5 years later. The Johnson Holdings board meeting was wrapping up when Dustin stood to make an announcement. Before we adjourned, he said, smiling, "I wanted to share some news. Rachel and I are expecting our first child." The room erupted in congratulations. Jennifer practically jumped over the table to hug him. I shook his hand, pulled him into an embrace. "Congratulations, son. You're going to be a great father. I learned from the best," he said. After the meeting, the family gathered for dinner, a tradition we'd maintained every Sunday. Grandma Betty, now in her late 80s but still sharp as a tack, presided over the table. "A great-great-grandchild," she marveled. "Never thought I'd see the day." "You'll see many more days," Dustin assured her.